What's up, party people? Welcome to the third episode of the Knick and the Hick. I am Eric. I am the Knick, and as always, this is...
I am Michael Brevard Decker, aka Captain BD, and I am the Hick.
So, as I previously said, this is episode 3, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about our Quentin Tarantino retrospective, as I like to call it. And so the first episode, we talked about Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, and now we're going to be talking about Jackie Brown. And we're only going to be talking about the one movie because we both feel that Kill Bill should have, because was released as 2 movies, it should be its own episode.
Yes.
So let me just get into a little of so Jackie Brown was his third, again, we're going to go through his directed movies, and then afterwards we'll rate them personally how we feel, our favorites and our maybe not so favorites. So this was like his third directed movie. It was 1997. One thing I found interesting about this was it's over 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, it is a long movie.
Yeah, it was a long movie. So, he wrote it, he directed it. It's adapted from a Elmore Leonard movie, Elmore Leonard book called Rum Punch. He also wrote, the John Travolta movie, which I completely lost. It's the crime movie with John Travolta and whatever.
Oh, is that the comedies?
No.
Get Shorty or whatever?
Yeah, Get Shorty, yeah.
And,
so
my favorite was what was the second one? That's the one that I love. Be Cool.
Be Cool, which he also, Elmore Leonard also wrote. But, so this is a crime movie. So, before we start getting into the plot, going into it, have you seen this before you watched it?
I saw this probably in the 90s and haven't seen it since. And yeah. I remember why.
Yeah, I too only saw it once. I believe this was the second time I watched it overall. And I watched it with my wife, and she had never seen it before. And, I briefly told her what I remembered, which was very little. And it kind of, held up my original thoughts. So this is supposed to take place in 95. So this is only 2 years before it was released. But it's about Jackie Brown, a flight attendant. How do you, in your personal opinion, how do you start explaining this movie? Because it's Quentin Tarantino, he doesn't really start it off very, straightforward.
It's her walking briskly and then running because she's about ready to miss her own flight. Yeah, and the scene is long.
Yeah.
It's a long scene. And then we do that again. There's a couple other times where it's just her walking.
And that's why it's 2.5 hours long. I thought it's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, he does it a couple times throughout the movie. And it's a long scene. She's just walking.
Yeah. A lot of just walking.
Yep.
But then we switch over to Samuel L. Jackson with
the ponytail.
Robert. His red hair and his ponytail and his little whisker that goes down.
I don't know. It's not good.
He's doing his best impression of Splinter from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The look. And he's with Robert De Niro, who looks like he took a bunch of Valium before they started filming, because he just sits there. I want to go more into his character later because it makes no sense the way that De Niro's character just flips. Because in the first part, he's just you have to poke him with a stick to see if he's still alive because he barely moves.
Cool.
He barely
speaks. A cool guy. Just doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, just a cool guy in the beginning. Right.
Yeah.
So, what's it? Oh, they're watching that movie. Well, not really a movie. They're watching a thing with
bad chicks with guns, hot chicks with guns, with big guns or something.
And Samuel Jackson goes into a whole thing about the guns. He makes a good point though, because he's a gun runner, in that people won't want guns, specific guns, unless they see them in the movies.
Yep.
And he mentions one of the John Woo movies. I think it's The Killer. And it's like once that movie came out, everyone wanted it.
Had that 45.
Yeah, that particular then. So it makes it's almost like Quentin Tarantino making a comment about violence in movies, even though people have said that he, creates violence in movies. So, but there's that long. It's just a weird long conversation, and then what's her name's in it? Bridget Fonda.
Yeah.
And then the phone rings and he tells her to go get it, and there's that whole stare down, and I don't know.
That was actually probably because it's described as a comedy crime movie, and
really?
Yeah, that's what I saw on like Wikipedia. It's a comedy. That was like one of the only like funny parts that I thought of in that movie is when they have their back and forth about the fucking phones.
Yeah, I see that. So eventually she gets the phone. She says it's for him. Oh, she does do that funny thing where she picks it up, barely says hello, and then just puts it on the counter and says it's for him. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah,
it's for you.
And then he picks it up and he hears it's from it's Chris Tucker. Essentially, we'll see it's Chris Tucker, who's got arrested drinking and driving while in possession of a gun. Yeah. So it's just like such a long setup, and I feel like a lot of this movie is just long setup. So then he goes to a bail bondsman, Max Cherry, who's played by Robert Forster. And I just wanted to say real quick is that this is Tarantino again doing that thing where he finds broken toys and he tries to repair them, because Pam Grier and Robert Forster were both like, symbols of the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Tarantino thought that they were great actors and actresses, so he polished them off and he tried. And Pam Grier kind of had a resurgence a little bit after this, but not as much as like Travolta did with Pulp Fiction. But anyway,
so I want to interject real quick just with Robert Forster. So I looked him up, and he's done a massive amount of work. And what I knew him the best as is from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and that movie, that Cadillac, whatever, that just came out. That was the continuation of Breaking Bad. But he's the guy that they call when you have to basically get away, like when you have to cut ties.
Oh yeah, right.
He's that guy.
Right.
And by the way, when that came out on Netflix last year, he actually died on the release. So rest in peace. He's got an excellent voice. I looked up. I wanted to see. I was like, his voice is awesome. I wonder if he's done any voice acting. And he had a little bit, not much, but I was like, man, that was a wasted, talent right there for that. Yeah. And so many movies, and I only knew like 2 or 3 of them. And he has like 50 movies that he's credited in. And I knew like 2 or 3 of them. I was like, well, he wasn't a great, big screen actor. But the big ones I think that he was in was, like you said, like in the 70s, like the cop shows and shit like that. That's what he was probably really known for.
Yeah, he was in a cop show called Banyan. And so he was, there was a lot of those kinds of cop shows and the detective cop shows in the 70s. And so obviously.
Was that reference in The Big Lebowski?
Probably. Yeah. So Quentin was like a big fan. I think Quentin is like a big fan of everything, but so I think he kind of thought what you kind of said was like, he was this great actor, with a good voice, and he's actually pretty. He also kind of got a resurgence also, but not as like you said, he was more of a character actor. But he was pretty good in this movie. He's like what you said with De Niro. He plays it very cool in this movie.
Yeah, he's just kind of a take no shit, just straight lace, straight arrow. Doesn't care about your story. He's just doing his job. Yeah.
So then there's a whole conversation with Samuel L. Jackson getting a bonds for Chris Tucker's character. And I feel like Samuel L. Jackson's character thinks he knows everything, or at least pretends to. But the way that he presents himself when he comes into the office, putting his feet up on the desk, smoking. not even saying, hey, can I come in or sit down? He just strolls right in like he owns the place. The problem with that is Forster has already been able to read him because of this whole conversation and the way that he acts. So he obviously knows that Samuel L. Jackson is into illegal activity. Yeah. And he brings $10,000 in cash.
In a bag.
To bond. Yeah, in a bag. So it's like, I just feel like Samuel L. Jackson's character is kind of dumb in that aspect, egotistical, overly egotistical. So he gets a bond for Chris Tucker. Then he goes to see Chris Tucker. And then I'm sure, even though both of us haven't seen this movie in a while, we both saw it coming, that he murders Chris Tucker.
Then that was kind of a cool setup, though. So that one didn't take too long. So I liked how he did it because my wife was still watching it with me at this time. So he's like, man, I just got you out of jail. Come help me out. Chris Tucker's like, man, it's late as hell, man. I'm not doing none of this shit. And this Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
That's Chris Tucker in every movie. That he gets him to where they need to go make a gun deal in Koreatown, but he needs him to be his muscle to where he's going to pop out of the trunk with a shotgun. And it sounds absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he's like, it's going to be about 10 minutes, man. It's just a Koreatown. You know how close it is. So he actually persuades him to get in the trunk. And then he drives just like around the block, and you can see the car coming up on the other side. And my wife's like, what's he doing? I was like, oh, he's dead. Like, he's gonna pop the trunk and shoot his ass. Yeah. And when he does it, I'm like, easiest murder ever.
Yeah. That's actually a really good shot because it pans up and it's just like the dead of night, quiet, and he's drives down the street, and it's this question of like, where's he going? Like, why are we still staying on this block? And it turns out he just went around the corner. I just thought that the only reason why he got away with that was because he hung it over Chris Tucker's head, that like, I just busted you out of jail, you can't do this one thing for me, and that's the only reason why he was able to get away with that. But
and I got you this lawyer, and he says that the whole case is bullshit, so don't even worry about none of that.
Yeah. But obviously the reason why he murdered Chris Tucker's character is because Chris Tucker had one of his guns, and he wasn't going to do 10 years, and Samuel L. Jackson knew that and knew that he was going to flip on him. So that, and then he shows it to De Niro. So De Niro's character just got out of prison. And he's about to go into business with Samuel L. Jackson with selling guns because he's supposed to do like this big deal, which kind of the MacGuffin because it never really happens. But Samuel L. Jackson shows him the body. It's basically his way of telling De Niro, don't fuck with me. Right?
Yeah. And De Niro pretty much in every scene acts the same exact way, which is that he's just lifeless and he doesn't really care.
But I mean, again, we'll get into why I have a problem with that. Because rewatching it, I thought like, this is like the way he acts when he does interviews. Like he just sits there. It just is like one-word answers. Yeah, just one-word answers. Yeah. So then we see Jackie Brown come back from her flight that she was running to. God, man, it's been like, what, 15, maybe 20 minutes, and we haven't even heard her speak once?
Yep. And the movie is named for her character, and we just saw her walking for 3 minutes straight and running to catch her own flight, and that was it.
So we see her, she gets out of the flight, she goes into a parking lot and goes to her car, and then two cops come and stop her, and one of them is played by Michael Keaton.
Yeah, one's Batman and one's Buck.
Yeah, once you started like trying to come up with a character name actor, I knew where you were going.
And everyone knows why he came here.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that gets us to Quentin Tarantino reusing actors.
Yeah.
So that guy was in Kill Bill in a very specific role. So they stop her, ask her to look through her bag. She ends up having money, 50 grand?
50 grand.
Something like that.
And a little bit of booger sugar.
Oh, yeah, that's right. A little bit of cocaine. Which, by the way, we find out later was for what's
Melanie.
Yeah, Bridget Fonda, which I don't know.
Hey, by the way, how good does Bridget Fonda look in this movie?
I mean, body-wise.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the 90s, they were letting a lot get away with the face. My wife and I were talking about that, like not a very smooth face, obviously nose job.
Yeah. Well, she's supposed to be like a surfer girl, and so she's like overly tanned. But even when she made this movie, I think she was probably pushing the point of no return, because that's one of her movies. So
That's a good movie.
I just made a dad joke. So yeah, I mean, it was like, and she's, by the way, she's fucking annoying. She's fucking annoying. So the cops figured
to the point where you could have almost just shoot her.
Very funny. So they bring her downtown, and basically, Michael Keaton is a ATF, and he wants Samuel Jackson, and they know that she's running money because she works for like a really small, shitty airline company that just goes to Cabo, in Mexico, and that's where Samuel L. Jackson's money is hidden. So she goes there and takes his money and brings it to him and whatnot.
So what we also learn, though, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
it's fine.
What we also learn is that the cops, they know all the players, but they don't really, the ATF, they don't really know what's going on at this point. Very much. They know the players, but they don't know
the connections.
The biggest thing is that they know that there's money being traveled, but they don't know if it's going to Mexico or coming back from Mexico. They don't know where the operation really is. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty big piece of the puzzle right there.
But it's mentioned that Michael Keaton's character, it's basically said that he doesn't care about the money. He cares about the guns. And so the money is just a connection to the guns. And it just happens to be a moment of chance that Jackie Brown had cocaine in her possession.
They get arrested her right then and there.
Right. And also the fact that she could be seeing, some time. Which, by the way, we get a little bit of backstory on her, that she had been arrested previously because of was an ex-boyfriend or ex-husband, and so since then she could only work for this really shitty airline company, which she's been doing it for like 13 years, and so she's kind of really just stuck in a rut, really. Yeah. And that scene where they were harassing her, and the cops were harassing her. And by the way, this movie does not portray cops well at all.
It doesn't.
And they're harassing her. She is just stone-faced the whole time, and you know that it's hitting her, but she's in a position where she can't act it. So they're like, you're going to get a lot of time because of the drug. They end up putting on the possession intent to distribute, which is like such a bullshit charge, but they want her to roll over, and that's why they're doing that.
Which they could, because it was also with 50 large,
Right. So, but I don't think that it's explained that she didn't really have a lot of cocaine on her, so it wasn't like enough to really sell. So then once again, Samuel L. Jackson gets Max, the bail bondsman, to do another bail, And of course, at this point, everyone knows that Chris Tucker's dead. So he just tries to get the $10,000 he put up for Chris Tucker to move it over to Jackie. And so then Robert Forster goes to pick Jackie up.
Wait,
and then
one more thing. So before we leave this scene, once again, Samuel L. Jackson's trying to bullshit Robert Forster. About the charges, and it's not this and that. And he's like, man, look, that's not, you're not looking at 10 grand for bail for something. This is something big. Like, don't tell me. And he was like, and it was at this point, he was like, look, I know you're either a drug dealer or a gun runner. He was like, I know that already, you know, about you. Like, so he, he calls him out on his shit. He was just bullshitting him again. And that's all I wanted to say. Robert Forster, once again, called Samuel out just on his bullshit.
Yeah, because, you know, again, Samuel Jackson just doesn't act the way he should. And it just, you know, it makes Robert Forster just like to see through his bullshit. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a character flaw in Samuel L. Jackson to just run his mouth and basically show all his cards on the table. So yeah, Forster goes to pick up Jackie Brown, and then that's when I mean, basically that's where we see him fall in love with her, like right there at that moment. Would you agree?
Yeah. And it's a weird, it's just weird. I don't know why it's weird. It's just weird. When they finally have a scene at the very end, it's like the most uncomfortable kissing scene I've ever seen. It's just, there's just no chemistry there at all.
Really? I don't know. I didn't think that.
And it's weird because it just seems like he's so much older than her. So I looked all this up, and like I said, he just passed away last year. And she's like 7 years younger than him, maybe.
Yeah.
In real life, I mean, there's not a big age gap, but it just feels like it. Like when you're watching this.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's interesting because I didn't get that. She says at one point she's 43 44. Or something, 44. And I mean, she was a little bit older in real life, and he mentions again that
52
he's like
or something
50,
like that.
Yeah. But I didn't really think they looked that far off in age. But we obviously see that the moment he sees her, he like has a thing for her. And he obviously goes the extra step by basically driving her home and driving her to get a drink. And she unloads on him, like gets some legal advice basically, because the cops told her that she could get like 5 years, and he tells her that that's bullshit basically, and that they're playing you because they want Samuel L. Jackson. And when he drives her home, Samuel L. Jackson comes to her place.
Yeah, it's
and
never
of course good. So he comes into the apartment, and she like walks past the light, and she goes into the kitchen, and then he goes to the light and shuts the light off.
Does it a couple times.
Yeah, right. I'd be like, motherfucker, why are you shutting my light off? Like, hello? But she knows, just like we know, that he's there to kill her. But what he don't know was she took Robert Forster's gun that was in his glove box and then clicked it right on his dick.
Probably another one of the best scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
Get your hands off my neck, off my throat.
Yeah, I agree with that. So then this is where this is my problem. She says to Samuel L. Jackson, let's do a deal. Let's make a deal. And it involves the rest of his money that's in Cabo. And I would have a problem if I was Samuel L. Jackson. I'd have a problem with trusting her.
Yeah. And
I would have a problem trusting him, because who's to say he's not going to do this again? You know, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, his ego gets ahead of him. Like, you know, because he thinks that he could just walk into her house and do the same thing he did to Chris Tucker. And that's the reason why we saw that in the first place, was to show us that this is what this guy does. He cuts ties. Yeah, loose ends. He cuts loose ends, and this is how he does it. But we see right away that Jackie Brown's not stupid. So she just crafts this idea, which I still don't really fully understand.
Yeah, it's convoluted.
Yeah, it is really fucking convoluted. But he says, okay, I mean, it involves, I feel like my head's going to explode. I'm just trying to explain it. It involves getting all the money from Cabo, but having the cops think that she's only going to be carrying a small fraction of it. And then
50,000.
Yeah, 50,000, right. And then basically having the cops go one way while she goes another way with the rest of the money. But she's got to pretend that she's going to be in on it, and she's going to tell the cops everything.
And so, right now we already know what's going to happen. This is a switcheroo. Right. There's going to be a switcheroo that happens, and now for the next hour and 20-something minutes, hour and 30 minutes left, we've just got to watch it unfold. Right.
Not everything is laid out for us.
No.
I mean, she ends up seeing Robert Foster again. She gives him his gun back. They eventually talk about it. There's a scene where she sees him and she's talking more about taking the money. And she says to him, like, what would you do? Like, would you take the money? And then it just fades to black. And then we get like the next scene. So we don't even actually know what Robert Foster has said for a few scenes until we finally see that he's, you know, in on the plan. Let's see what else. This is a lot of talk.
So Pam Grier, okay, I just want to say, at this point in 97, she's aged well.
Yeah.
But until the scene where she's wearing that blue blouse and she really has her hair done, like, she doesn't look like excellent. But there's that scene, because you're just like, everybody's basically just Googling over her this whole movie, you know?
Yeah.
Basically everybody. And you're just like, I don't know. I mean, she's definitely better looking for an older lady, you know? But
yeah,
until she does her hair and she's wearing like that blue blouse, and I'm like, oh no, like Pam Grier she's a looker.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the pinnacle of that is when she wears that Reservoir Dogs pantsuit at the end.
Yes.
Because the whole point is that she's a smart lady, a good-looking lady, and a badass, but she's just been dealt a terrible hand. And she says she's not cut out for living this life anymore, so she wants something better. And you know, that's hustling Samuel L. Jackson to get all this money. By the way, his name is, I keep saying Samuel L. Jackson, his name in the movie is Ordell. Such a weird name, but what else? Yeah.
It is. I thought I was for it's not.
But yeah, it's a lot of setup. She manipulates everybody pretty much except for Robert Forster. She makes the cops think that she's gonna. She tells them that they got to do a dry run. They got to do a dry run to see how the operation works. And Samuel Jackson basically reveals that he's got 3 women in LA, that he's set them all up with houses. He basically just goes to their houses to bang them. And what's her name? Melanie is one of them. And then there's 2 other women. Simone,
and then I forget
Sharonda?
The other one. It's the country girl. Yeah, Sharonda.
I think it's Sharonda.
Girl. Which I don't know. Was she just high off her mind like the whole time?
Yeah.
Was that she wasn't all there? Like, was she strung out?
Yeah. I mean, he tells the story that he finds this country girl, who just came to California, and he sets her up in a house in Compton, and he gets her to believe it's Hollywood. And then the few times we see her, she's very, submissive, I guess is the word to. And then later on we see her. Basically, he just like drugs this girl and manipulates her so he could have sex with her whenever he wants. So Ordell's not a good person.
No, and his hair is just stupid.
It's annoying. I said to my wife, I think it has something to do with the fact that like Jules' hair, because he had a specific look in Pulp Fiction. So then like Quentin Tarantino wanted him to have a specific look in this movie as well. Unless that's the way Ordell looks in the book, but I highly doubt it. Because that seems like a Quentin Tarantino thing. Where the fuck are we? So they do a dry run, and they meet up in the mall, and Ordell gets his women, and of course one of the women steals the money from the dry run from Ordell. Because I think Ordell's character is just, he's portrayed as being this, this badass, and he really isn't. And it's just, everything just starts to fall apart around him, slowly but surely. He can't rely on anyone.
No,
he definitely
nobody.
Can't rely on anyone. So then they start to do the big one, and that's supposed to be, the 550,000. So she's got the 500,000, and then it's hidden lower, and then she's got the 50,000, and it's so fucking confusing, man.
So the cop's number is 50,000, and that's where Keaton marks the bills for 50,000.
Right.
So she just plays it so well. What she does is she does the switcheroo with Melanie, and she gives Melanie 40,000, which is a really weird number to Samuel L. Jackson. He's like, why even fucking give me 40?
Right.
Like what's the hell's that number? And Robert De Niro's like, well, I mean, there's a reason for it. She just show you that she could or something, But yeah, so that's the 50,000. The 50,000 is a very specific number for the cops.
All right. So speaking of Melanie, so because Samuel L. Jackson used the older lady, Simone, and she ran off with the money, he was forced to use Melanie as the one to pick up the money. Now, the problem with that is Melanie is very irresponsible and unpredictable.
Annoying.
And annoying. And De Niro's character, Lewis, is supposed to bring her to the mall, where she's then going to pick up the money in the dressing room from Jackie Brown. So, of course, they're late. And this is where the Tarantino style comes in. So they show it in the point of view of Jackie Brown, and then they go back and then they show it in the point of view of De Niro and what's her name, and Melanie.
Yeah.
And then they go back and then they re-show in the point of view of Robert Forster, because he's the I guess the secret part of it that no one else except for Jackie knows. So so she goes into the dressing room. She drops the money that Melanie's supposed to pick up. She gives Melanie, you said she gives Melanie 10,000 of it. And so Melanie goes
40.
off and
Gives her 40.
Well, she gives Melanie 10 of it though.
Okay. That's right, because the cops found it. Yeah.
Right. She puts it on top and she says, hey, this is for you. Ordell doesn't treat us well. This is for you. And she's like, oh, thanks. So she goes off. Yeah. She goes off with Lewis or Robert De Niro. And then she leaves the 500,000 in the dressing room, walks out.
Which is crazy.
Yes. And I thought this was
moment. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And I thought this was smart, though. She tells the woman who works in the department store, somebody left a bag of towels in the dressing room. Now, Robert Forster is in earshot. So they probably planned this out anyway. But then he comes up after she leaves and says, hey, my wife left the bag of towels. I thought that was very smart because obviously it doesn't seem out of the ordinary, So anyway, I thought that was pretty clever. And so he goes and he picks up the 500,000 and then he drives away with it. And so then she runs and finds the cops and tells them that Melanie ran off with all of it. And she doesn't know, what happened. But De Niro and Melanie
are not getting along.
No. And see, so here's my problem with De Niro's character. Now, we've already established that he is just like half dead.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, he is sweating. He's acting erratic. He's like basically abusing her in the store because she won't listen. And Samuel L. Jackson tells her, like, just pop her in the mouth, just smack her a little bit. And he's just is so, like, irritable and easily irritable. What the fuck happened to that character who was, like, half dead for most of the movie?
Yeah, didn't give a shit.
Now, all of a sudden, and then she starts making fun of him because he can't find the car in the parking lot.
He can't find anything.
No, he can't find it. And she says to him, he went to prison for robbing the bank. How did you rob a bank? Like, how could you?
Yeah, how'd you find your getaway car?
Yeah. So, of course, this pushes him over the edge, and he just fucking shoots her. Right.
Well, first he says, don't say one more word. Don't say one more word. That's all he says. He doesn't say, you say one more word, I'll kill you. He doesn't say nothing like that. He just says, don't say one more word. And then
in the middle of that word, he then shoots her. So even I remember this is one of the only things I remember my first time watching this, and just thinking that it's just such an out of character. Like all of a sudden he's just like freaking out and he doesn't know what to do, and he takes a moment that could have been, could have handled it differently.
Could have popped in the mouth.
Yeah. So he just shot her, killed her, didn't even know that she had the 10,000 on her, gets in the car, and then drives to meet up with Samuel L. Jackson. So, of course, Jackie now has to explain to the cops what happened, and she lies her ass off, and, eventually they believe it.
Well, they believe it because shit matches up.
Right.
That she stole it because they find the money on her. They find some of the money on her. In her bra, and obviously whoever was there with her took the rest of it. What I mean? That's what it's very easy to assume that that's what played out.
Right. Now, what's interesting about that is that they find Melanie. That is that works for Jackie Brown's favor, and Jackie Brown didn't know that she didn't know that that Melanie was gonna be murdered in the parking lot. But also, is that karma? Because the reason why Jackie Brown was, brought downtown in the first place was because she had cocaine on her because of Melanie. So is that karma on Melanie's part?
What happens in the parking lot? This is where things for me get weird. So you start off with Pam Grier, with Jackie Brown, okay? And then you see Melanie and Lewis watching Jackie Brown. And then when we get to the third story, we see Robert Forrester watching Melanie and Louis watching Jackie Brown. It's like he does this all the time to where he's got her. Yeah. It's all coming together and it's all intertwining. So what I don't understand it because I don't even like it, is when they're leaving. When they're leaving and Forrester's driving away and it took them so long to find their own car, you would think that they would meet up in the parking lot right around the same time. And I was wanting to see that murder, or at least gunshots, or them wandering around and him kind of like not trying to be seen by them or something. But nothing ever happened. They didn't meet up in the parking lot at all. That was very un-Tarantino-y.
Yeah, I think I might be able to explain that. Because Lewis and Melanie parked in the mall parking lot, but Forrester parks in the department store parking lot. So you see it, like he walks right out of the department store and he goes right into the parking lot. The door to the store is like right there.
Yeah.
but they are walking in the giant mall's parking lot. So technically, it would probably be a different.
But at least to
complex.
hear the gunshots, you would hear it.
Well, I said that to my wife. I said, like, he walks away, and no one's. Mind you, the parking lot's not packed with cars. Like, there are a lot of spots.
Still hasn't found his car.
Yeah. And then no one would hear that? Like, yeah, people would fucking hear that. But that alone, yeah. But I understand what you're saying about the whole, like, you know, two characters running into each other. That is a Tarantino thing. So then when Lewis finally meets up with Samuel L. Jackson, that's when they realize that Jackie Brown has fucked them out of the 500. And De Niro didn't even know. Like, Lewis didn't even know. Mm-hmm. And then he dawns on him that he saw Robert Forster's character in the department store. And then, of course, it all clicks into Samuel L. Jackson. And then, of course, they get into a fight, and Samuel L. Jackson kills Robert De Niro. Now, let me ask you this question, though. Do you think he killed Robert De Niro because of seeing Robert Forster's character and not realizing it, or because Lewis killed Melanie?
Both, and he didn't want to kill him. So we learned that they served some good time together, you know, 10 or 20 years ago. So they're very close. And he takes a while, and he just rests, and he just thinks about it and thinks about it. It's a really quiet scene to where he's like, oh my God, I got to kill this dude.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it bothers him. But then, yeah, finally it happens. So I think it's probably not as much as Melanie as it is for just being dumb enough. For one thing, he messed up a lot. Just for killing somebody in broad daylight with a bag of his money, not knowing for sure if she was even dead. So what he's thinking is, this chick's gun maybe is, where'd you shoot her at? Well, in the stomach and the chest. And that's the moment where he's like, oh, I got to kill this guy. Because she could still be alive. You know,
right. That he mentions that, yeah.
So he really screws the pooch, and then knew that it was Robert Forster and didn't do something about that immediately, knowing that was, anybody should have known that was a problem, that wasn't a coincidence, you know. So yeah, he had to kill him. I don't think I think this is the one murder that he has to commit that isn't a loose end, because I doubt Lewis would ever turn on him, but. He just did some dumb shit that's going to get him in trouble anyways.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with you that he probably wouldn't turn on him, but he is a loose end for different reasons. Because, that's brought up. It's like, well, is she dead? Are you sure she's dead? Because she could still be alive. And he says, like, shot her in the stomach and the chest. And those are two kill shots. Survive. Yeah, you can survive, but you could also, I guess it depends on where in the chest, but the stomach is usually a pretty
But we also learned that Ordell pops him once in the chest and once in the head, so he leaves his people dead.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So then there's that, and those two deaths pretty much, put Jackie Brown in the clear. So then now she has to deal with Samuel L. Jackson. So now Samuel L. Jackson goes to see Robert Forster, or he calls him, right?
Yep, he calls him. Forster calls Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, well, no. First, Samuel L. Jackson calls Forster first, and then he leaves a message, and then Forster calls her back, thinking that it's about the $10,000 bond that he put up. And then Samuel L. Jackson just lays it on the table, and it's like, look, I know Jackie was working with you, and, blah, 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 blah. And so Forster's got to come up with this, so he obviously, we don't see any of this shit. We're just seeing this from pretty much Samuel L. Jackson's point of view so far. And then he contacts him back and says, I have the money in my office, and you can come and get it. And Jackie's very scared of you. Oh, she's so scared of you. And
what he said one or two things. I don't know what's going on, but I know what's going to happen.
Right.
It's one or two things. You guys are going to run off with the money, and I will find you, and I will kill you. Or two, you're going to run off with the money, and you're going to turn me into the police. I will list her as an accessory and she will go to jail with me.
Yeah, bring her down. Yeah, but
which we've known that is something that she is not
does not
planning on doing. Yeah.
Does not want
more than anything. More scared of that than anything.
Yeah. But he doesn't believe it at first that she's scared of him. But I guess, yeah, they play it up like she's more scared of what he can do. So they come up with a plan that it just seems like full of holes. But
I don't know why the cops had to be there.
Well, I have a question for you about that. But
okay.
So they convince, Robert Forster convinces Ordell to come back to his office, and that Jackie Brown's going to be there, and they're going to give him the money. And then we see Jackie Brown sitting in Robert Forster's office and turns all the lights off. Now, two things happen in that scene. One, she makes a phone call that we don't know who she calls. But the second thing is she puts a gun in the desk.
Yeah, and rehearses pulling it out.
Practices pulling the gun out. Now, when they finally come, you don't know what's going to happen, but it turns out the cops are there, and the cops, Samuel L. Jackson, Ordell comes in with Robert Forster. Pam Grier's in the dark. She yells out that he has a gun, and the cops come and shoot Ordell dead, which he does have a gun, but that didn't mean that he was going to shoot Jackie Brown. But my question to you is, why is she rehearsing if she goes to call the police?
I think that was just something for us. That was just something for us to keep us on our toes. I didn't feel like the police were there. I didn't think that the police were going to shoot him.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Going into this.
I agree. But my problem is, I think you could have conveyed just as much of a message if she just opened up the drawer and saw the gun, or opened up the desk and saw the gun, and then just closed it and then just sat back. You know what I mean? Like practicing really makes it seem like
for a while.
Gonna happen.
For a while, she did it. What did she do? Like 10 times?
Yeah, she did a lot.
A while practicing.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. I understand what you're saying, but I still think it could have just her opening the desk and her looking down. That would have been enough. So they shoot him.
Do you feel? So this is what I feel that this problem is the timing of all that, right? The timing of that, the timing of watching Jackie Brown walk, that long scene, just long drug out scenes. Some of them made sense. Some of them's like, we took a little too long on that. But do you feel like this was, so Quentin Tarantino, he did Reservoir Dogs. He did Pulp Fiction, two very Tarantino movies. Do you feel like this was his stab at doing kind of like a normal movie per se?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He put his stamp on it in what he could. Meaning like that whole time thing that we talked about in the mall, seeing it from different perspectives. That's him.
You've got really big actors in this movie especially for the 90s. You got Michael Keaton, he's Batman. You've got Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro was huge all throughout the 90s.
He still was, yeah.
You got Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker at that time was the biggest he ever was.
Yeah.
So you can tell that there's way more budget in this movie than there was in the previous two. He had way more money to do. This was way more Hollywood, and this was his stab at just doing something very different for him, but something very normal for Hollywood.
Well, he had a very low budget, actually. He had a $12 million budget.
Yeah.
Which was low. But I do agree that he wanted to do something different. I totally agree. And he also adapted a book, which he rarely does or did, because most of his movies, off the top of my head, I think were all original movies. So this is one of the only times he adapted a book. So I think that comes into play also. But because he does put his stamp on it, but he doesn't do it to the point where you look at it and think, this is definitely a Tarantino movie. It doesn't feel like Pulp Fiction. It doesn't feel like any of his other movies after this. I feel like he wanted to do something different, and didn't really go well.
No, it didn't. Also, what I wanted to bring up. So we talk about Tarantino's universe all the time, right? And throughout this whole movie, I'm trying to find a tie. I'm trying to find.
I don't know if there really are. Yeah.
A tie. And so I'm like, I don't. There's nothing. And I looked it up online to see if maybe there's something parallel to something else in another movie, or maybe another movie farther down the road. And no, it clearly states that all of Tarantino's movies are in a universe. They all are either directly in, or they are spectating another part of his universe, except for this one. This is the only movie that has nothing to do with the Tarantino universe.
Well, I will say this. There is a connection to another movie, but it is not a Tarantino movie. So there's another Elmore Leonard book that was adapted with Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney.
Yeah, Out of Time.
Out of
sight.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of time, something like that.
I don't want to correct you. So Michael Keaton's in that movie as well, and he plays the same character.
Okay.
So he plays Ray Nicolette, who's he's a
ATF.
What did I say? Yeah. ATF. So yeah, so he plays the same character in both movies because I think he shows up in both books. So that's the only connection to another movie. But yeah, there's no real connection. We didn't even see the Red Apple cigarettes. Like, we didn't really see almost nothing.
No.
But yeah, I mean, just the movie just ends with them getting the money, and then she goes off to Spain. Robert Forster tells her that he wants to retire. And obviously it was the moment he saw her come out of the jail. Like, that's when he realized he wanted to retire. But yet he doesn't go with her. Do you have a theory on why?
He's a pussy. She asked him, "Are you afraid?" And he's like, "A little bit. I'm a little afraid."
Well, she says, "Are you afraid of me?" And he says, "A little bit."
Yeah.
But I think that the whole thing has made him change his mind. But we don't get anything. We don't get a scene. We don't get a line. We don't get anything that says that. But yeah, I just wanted to say, before we get into how we felt about this movie, in terms of all of his movies, this is 87% Rotten Tomatoes. And this is his third weakest. High. Yeah, it is high. But it's his third weakest box office. Yeah. So like the worst movie, I should say the worst movie, but the movie that made the least amount of money is Reservoir Dogs. But that makes sense because it was an independent movie. It really caught on after, like, in video sales and whatnot. And then the second lowest to make money was Death Proof. And that movie's, spoiler alert, awful.
It's garbage, yeah.
So it's just, Jackie Brown is third because I don't, even though Jackie Brown was a budget of $12 million and it made over 74, which technically is a hit, I don't really think it did that well overall.
No, I've seen tons of Tarantino movies time and time again, and I do not remember the last time I watched this at all.
Yeah. But before we get into our final thoughts, is there something you wanted to tell us?
Oh, yeah. Hey, listeners.
I do, Michael. I do. Oh, sorry. What?
Hey, listeners. Hey, our undying, loving gamers family. So next week, one of the longest anticipated, sought after games is coming out. The Last of Us 2. Our fearless leader has reserved 3 copies, and on this episode of the Knick and the Hick, we will be giving away the deluxe edition, but not like giving it away tonight. You guys got to do a little bit of work for it. Okay? So what we want you guys to do is log in to YouTube, type in Gamerish, hit like, hit subscribe, and leave us a comment. Now, how we're going to select the winner is we're just going to randomly choose from the comments, but everybody's going to comment the same thing. One word, one name, Ellie. That's it. That's all we want you guys to comment on this video in particular. Episode 3, Knick the Hick. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, Ellie. Okay, we will also be posting a post in the Facebook group about all this. Okay, so once again, if you guys are active and you play in this group, it pays to play. So that's all. Pretty exciting.
Yes. Yeah, pretty exciting. Last of Us, was it the collector's edition code? Yeah. So all you got to do is make a comment, like, subscribe, and make sure that comment is Ellie, and then we will pick out of those comments
the deluxe
who will win
edition.
the code. The deluxe edition. That's it. Some shit.
Yeah, it's a good one, guys.
No, it's pretty exciting. I can't wait. So what did we think of Jackie Brown? What did you think of Jackie Brown?
So long. And honest to God, it was for about the first 30 or 45 minutes I was into it. I really was. Some weird shit happened.
Wait, how long?
Maybe 30, 45 minutes. And I still had a long ways to go.
Oh, yeah.
So a couple weird, there were a couple moments that just felt weird. So first time we met Simone, right? She's doing this old Supremes number for Robert De Niro.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, and we don't know anything about either one of these characters, really. So I'm like, Is she a prostitute? Is she his girlfriend? I was like, this is a weird dude. Like, and then no, she's just has a trap house for Ordell, and that's just like nothing built off of that. And honest to God, I don't know why. I think when Pam Grier pretties herself up, and she does, I'll just say it, she looks good when she does her hair and she wears that blue blouse, and then at the end of it, where she's not only does you can tell she's had time to relax and take care of herself. When she's in the jeans and that little white shirt, she just acts differently. Yeah. You can tell that a large weight has been lifted off of her shoulders. She has a totally different attitude at this moment. That kiss is just off. It's just off. And when they go in for the second time, it's times 2 off for me. Like they had good chemistry as friends, throughout this movie. But when they took it to that next step, I was like, no, I'm not buying it. Like, I'm just not buying this. She needs something younger and just I believe his attraction.
Yeah.
I don't believe hers.
Yeah, I agree with that. My wife kept saying, like, why does she trust him so much? And I said, well, she's into him. And I had to rethink my comment, because I was like, well, do we really get that, though, that she's into him? We get that he's into her.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like hit over the head.
When my wife was watching with me, and they're in the mall, and he just notices her, and that big ear-to-ear smile pops up, and fucking he's going straight at her. My wife was like, oh, yeah, he loves her.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. Well, there's a scene that I didn't really mention where Samuel L. Jackson and Jackie Brown are at the ball talking about how they're going to play, go down. And Samuel L. Jackson walks away and he sees Robert Forster. And Robert Forster just happens to be in the same mall watching the movie. And Robert Forster goes into the, what's it called? The
food court.
The food court, thank you, where Jackie Brown is. And she sees him. She calls his name. She has him come over, and that's where the conversation comes to, like, well, I'm going to take his money. What would you, do with the money? So her calling him over at least shows you that she does like him or care for him as a friend.
Yeah.
But anything beyond that, it's like a little bit difficult. There's no real, it's not like Robert Forster, like watching her walk down the aisle and him getting pitching a tent. Like, it was really obvious that he was fucking in love with her.
So also in the kiss scene, the kissing scene, she says, "I didn't play you," and I'm like, yeah, you did.
Well, she didn't lie to him though.
She didn't lie to him,
but
she played him like a fiddle.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could argue that's because she was into him too, but it's a little bit difficult to see that. I thought the acting was good. I thought there was a lot of editing that could have been done. A lot of editing. Because the scene where she pretends that the money's gone, she runs through the department store.
Just looks around like a lost kid.
And it's just like, just keeps going and going and going and going. And I don't know. It just was... I feel like though Tarantino doesn't like to edit unless he really personally feels it could be trimmed, because a lot of his movies are very long, especially the later movies are very long. So I feel like he likes to keep as much as he can, no matter how long it goes.
How do you feel about this one?
It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a one watcher, or in our case, two watcher. It doesn't have the Tarantino feel, but you see it, like you said before, like it's not a Pulp Fiction. It's not even. It's his send up to like 70s blaxploitation movies or soul. He has a lot of soul in the movie, a lot of music. But it just falls flat. It really falls flat. I was looking this up though. His cinematographer is the same guy who's done like a lot of Guillermo del Toro movies. Okay. So it looks good. Like this guy did Desperado. He did From Dusk Till Dawn. He did the Hellboy movies. It looks good. It's acted well. But it just runs so long. 2.5 movies. Like, honestly, 2.5 movies for people to backstab each other, and that's pretty much it. There's almost no action in this at all.
But the most undeserving kiss ever in a movie.
Yeah. But I'll tell you right now, this is going to be low on the list. When we do all the movies.
For me, it's dead last right now.
You think it's dead last right now?
Out of the three we've watched.
Totally. Yeah. Without a doubt. All right. Yeah. So what have you been doing this week?
This week, let's see. Have you ever watched that Into the Shadows, the movie? Or the TV
What We
show
Do in the
on
Shadows.
Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah.
So I watched, I think that was the last episode of that this week.
Yeah.
And then I went back and I watched the movie that came out in like 2014, 2015, and it's fucking hilarious too.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
So I watched that this week.
So you saw the whole season this season?
Yeah.
So what did you think of the season?
I thought it was great. I really kept expecting Guillermo to kill one of the big vampires.
Yeah. To be honest, I thought it started off slow this season, but the middle and the end were great. And they had a lot, especially the end. The season finale was really good.
So I've also been playing a bunch of video games. So Destiny 2 they did their new season. So I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2, a little bit of Animal Crossing, and I have been playing the game that Facebook voted for us to start off with of our 2007 movie of our game of the year, which is Bioshock. And I don't know, I think I'm probably about 5 hours into it, I'd say.
Where are you? Do you know like where you are specifically in the game?
I've just passed like the medical area.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So when you first go up that elevator, and he's opening up the elevator for you, and then you've got the splicers are coming through the door, and finally the elevator starts up right when they're coming through, and then all of a sudden you get the map, and then the map shows a location clear across the map, and there's no You don't see stairs. You don't see anything. You just know it's over there. And by the way that you're looking at, you're like, well, shit, some things are going to go up. Some things are going to go down. I got to follow this stupid path to get all the way over there. I've made it over there. That's how far I am.
By the way, so we both got, I guess we shouldn't go too much into it, but we both got the collection, right?
Yeah. And it looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. I am a little bit further. I guess you could say I'm in like the bowels of the city, I guess. So yeah, I can't really pronounce the name of it, but that certain area of the city. But yeah, I'm a little bit further.
How you feeling about it right now?
I love it. I mean,
yeah.
before replaying it, I replayed it not that long ago, and it is definitely one of my favorite games of all time.
So yeah, I won't get into it too much. I just
yeah,
that's about as far as I am, and that's another game that I've been playing. I don't know if there's. Oh, I did. So No Man's Sky was released on Xbox Game Pass, so I've been playing that. You're not into it at first until you actually start figuring shit out, and then it's a pretty cool game. It's like Minecraft, but in space.
Okay. Yeah. No, I thought that was the game that people didn't really care for.
Oh, it bombed, and then they
went down.
Yeah, it bombed, but then they went back and they really fixed a lot of issues with it.
So yeah, so I too am obviously I'm playing Bioshock as well. But yeah, stay tuned for the next episode for us, I guess, to talk about our feelings about that game. Let's see. Other than that, I'm also watching What We Do in the Shadows, which I mentioned. That's pretty much it. I haven't really been doing much playing.
Yeah, I had a long week of work, so I didn't do a whole lot. Did you watch that Bruce Lee on ESPN?
No. Oh, how was it?
It's pretty good. It's not bad. It gets in. It's weird because Bruce Lee wasn't exactly an athlete, and every single 30 by 30 has something to do with the world of sports. Either if it's agents or shoe salesmen or players or coaches or whatever, but everybody's involved in the actual business of like professional or college sports. Except for this, like he's a movie star. He wasn't really even in like competitions. Like he did his own exhibitions and things like that. But
yeah, right.
But he wasn't in like an associated, league or anything like that ever. So that's weird. So it's just like it's a thing of the time right now because we're obviously going through a lot of racial tension, and it outright it's right to do it, but it plays a lot on racism that Bruce Lee had to endure.
Oh yeah.
But I liked it. I learned quite a bit. He didn't really even get into martial arts until he was like 13.
Really?
Yeah, pretty old.
I don't think I knew that.
And then he was a child star in China.
Yeah.
An actor. I didn't know that. His
father
dad was a big actor.
Yeah. That I knew, yeah. I definitely want to see it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I liked it. Yeah, that's all I've been doing.
Yeah.
Watching a little TV, playing a little bit of games.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Bioshock, so.
It's good.
Yeah, it is good. I kind of, you know what, actually, you mentioned Animal Crossing. I stopped playing.
Did you? Is it just time?
Yeah. It's just having to do the same thing every day.
Yeah. I'm trying to get a little bit more into it, and then the more I try, the less interested I am. Yeah. I ended up selling Nips yesterday for like $194 because I was like, fuck it. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, it's the repetitive nature is starting to get to me, and nothing new has really made me want to play, I guess.
It's snowing on my island.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know it could
snow. Everything's covered in snow, and we're building snowmen and shit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, see that? Something like that would make me want to play, even for like a day or two, just to see that. You haven't done the wedding thing, right?
No. Oh, what's the wedding thing?
Yeah. There's no, huh?
The wedding thing. What's the wedding thing?
So on that island, I don't remember his name. There's another island that you could go to. He's like a hippy dippy kind of guy.
Oh yeah, I didn't go the
So
second
you could
time.
like set up people's this one couple's wedding, and then they take pictures of it.
He gives me the
And
creeps.
he does, yeah. But you could like customize the pictures that you take with them. But I haven't tried it because I don't care.
Yeah, I went the first time where he just teaches you how to take selfies, and he basically takes you down to his sex dungeon. Is what it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of somebody, of a weird hippy dippy guy, come on my island by yourself with no one else, where no one can hear you scream. You know, it's just kind of.
And you're just thinking,
creepy.
you're like, this is a kid's game. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's a little creepy. I guess that just makes us jaded, though. All right. I guess that would wrap it up, right? Call it a wrap, whatever.
So next week, what are we doing? We're doing Bioshock. We're doing Kill Bill.
We're doing Bioshock. Well, we could do both. I mean, we'll just play it by ear, but it depends on how much we want to talk about Bioshock. But because Kill Bill, we're going to be talking about Kill Bill 1 and 2. That's going to be a long conversation.
It's going to take some time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's probably see how long it takes us to talk about that.
All right. So your rank's still the same? Still Pulp Fiction 1, Reservoir Dogs 2, Jackie Brown 3?
So far, yeah.
Okay. Me too.
I mean,
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. No wrenches being thrown yet.
No. I think, Jackie Brown is okay, but I think it's definitely in some ways disappointing.
We're not going to get into the fun until we get through the Kill Bills, the Inglourious Bastards,
because
the Django,
because he goes up and then he goes down again and then goes up. So yeah, not until he comes back up it starts to get really interesting. But all right, so yeah, don't forget to go on the Gamers Facebook page and like, subscribe, and comment on this video. What else is there?
Guys, we got a Patreon. So please check out our Patreon. Throw us $1 if you want to, or $5 if that's really what you want to do. Also, because we could use it, this is stuff that we are putting back into the group. You see Andre getting games, and we do giveaways, and we do fun stuff for our group. Also, invite some friends to our YouTube channels, to our Facebook group. Invite 1, invite 5. If you leave a nice comment. If you don't like what we're doing, just keep that to yourself.
There's a email. Yeah, hey, gamers537@gmail.com. Just email us and tell us how much you hate us. As long as you just email us so no one else can hear or see it, that's fine. What else? We got a Thursday podcast every week, the Gamers Third Rate Podcast. I have, this week, actually, I will say this. This week I'm having Fanboy with an Opinion. It's going to be a 2-parter for June. So this Wednesday will be part 1, and then the next Wednesday will be part 2, because I have a lot to say about a lot of things. So tune into that. Wow.
I got one question for you, actually.
I
forgot to bring this up. So now we're in the hangover of the PS5 event. How do you feel now about it? Was it as awesome as it felt then, or do you think it's a little underwhelming now?
Well, I didn't think it was awesome then.
Yeah.
I thought it was underwhelming. I think I said this at some point. It seems like they blew their load in the beginning. They really hit it out of the park at first, and then the rest of it was just a lull and just slow. And then they they tried to end it off on a high note by introducing Horizon Dawn 2. But I thought there was a lot of predictions that didn't come through.
Yes.
They didn't mention a price, which I thought they should have.
It's time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there were some good-looking games, and then there were some not so good-looking games.
So yeah, kind of like that's how I feel. I think kind of like Tarantino, there could have been some editing done because that was extremely long too.
It was long.
And if it's extremely long, like what Andre said during that, if it's extremely long and we're getting 9s and 10s the whole way through, then I'll watch that shit all day. No problem with it. But there were probably, 6, 7 games back to back to back to back to back that kind of looked the same, and wow, not that into it, you know? That's how I felt about it. So that's how I feel about it now. It was super exciting about Spider-Man. It was super exciting about Horizon. I'm interested in playing Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, that did look good. That one looked good.
There are a few games in between that I did like. I did like that Devil Inside. There were a couple others that I thought were interesting and that I'd like to play. But there was just so much like filler material that I didn't give a shit about. And I give even less of a shit about now.
A lot of filler, yes.
It's all right, yeah, I was just wondering.
No, that Spider-Man game looked great, but I was confused over whether it was just a new game.
See, it's hard to explain this to you because you don't like Uncharted. So Uncharted 4 came out, and then only about a year, maybe even less than a year later, another game came out with a couple of the females that were in the game called Lost Legacies. So it was a standalone title, but it was also a sequel, and it was also kind of DLC in a way. Like it was kind of all of these things. It was shorter. It was like probably 10, 15 hours, but it was a standalone game. But when you get achievements for it, it does register on your PS4 as Uncharted 4. As Uncharted 4.
So it's like a DLC. So the achievements see it as a DLC.
But you don't have to have Uncharted 4 to play Lost Legacies.
Okay.
So it is a standalone title. So this is going to be like that.
Right. But I just wish they would have explained that.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it would be like that just because of the time. Not enough time has passed.
Right, because of the time. But the way they showed it looked like it was going to be a full game.
Mm-hmm. It totally did. It totally did.
All right. Am I forgetting anything, or
no? I don't think so.
Call it a night?
Anything we remember, we'll just tell our fans next time.
Yep. All right. So then there you have it. I've been the Nick, and
I am the Hick still.
And we will see you next week. Later.
Good night, everybody.
Night.